On a cold day in December of 2000, 7 convicted criminals pulled off one of the most daring prison escapes in U.S. history. Known as the Texas 7, they meticulously orchestrated a breakout from the maximum security Connolly unit in South Texas, overpowering guards, stealing firearms, and vanishing into the Texas landscape. Their actions led to the brutal murder of a police officer, multiple armed robberies, and a nationwide manhunt, which finally ended in a dramatic capture that played out on live television. The Texas 7 prison break, which began on December 13, 2000, shocked law enforcement and the public alike. 7 dangerous convicts, all serving long sentences for violent crimes, managed to escape from the Connolly unit, a high-security prison in Kennedy, Texas. Their escape was meticulously planned, involving taking hostages and hijacking a prison maintenance truck to slip through security checkpoints. Once free, the Texas 7 embarked on a crime spree that included armed robberies and the murder of an Irving police officer, Aubrey Hawkins. The evasion of law enforcement lasted nearly 2 months, ending in January of 2001, thanks to a tip from the TV show America's Most Wanted. Located in Karnes County right off Highway 181, the John B. Connolly Unit is a maximum security prison that houses just over 2,000 inmates. The Connolly Unit in Kennedy, Texas, was thought to be secure. However, on December 13, 2000, the Texas 7, George Rivas, the ringleader, Joseph Garcia, Michael Rodriguez, Larry Harper, Patrick Murphy, Randy Halpern, and Donald Newberry proved otherwise. The group, all convicted of serious offenses like murder and armed robbery, banded together over months to plan their breakout. At the time of the breakout, the ringleader of the Texas 7, 30-year-old George Rivas, was serving 18 consecutive 15-to-life sentences and was originally convicted of robbery. Michael Anthony Rodriguez, 38, was originally convicted of capital murder for hiring Rolando Ruiz Jr. to murder his wife Teresa in 1992. Larry James Harper, 37, was convicted of aggravated sexual assault. Joseph Garcia, 29, was convicted of murder for killing Miguel Luna in 1996 during a drunken altercation. Patrick Henry Murphy Jr., 39, is serving for aggravated sexual assault with a deadly weapon. He was convicted of entering the home of a 23-year-old woman he had known since high school, putting a knife to her throat and raping her. They were all serving 50-year sentences. Donald Keith Newberry, 38, is serving 99 years for aggravated robbery. Joseph Garcia was 4 years into a 50-year sentence for a 1996 Bexar County murder. Rivas and Garcia became friends because of a prison gang war. It was a feud between the Mexican Mafia and La Raza Unida that sparked a unit-wide lockdown, Garcia told the Chronicle, and the men met up in the day room where they bonded over a poor man's spread of prison-made food. The lockdown ended and they went their separate ways, but a few months later, Garcia spotted Rivas standing and talking to another man, Larry Harper. Garcia was already frustrated, only 4 years in and not sure how he could really do all the time stressed out in front of him. He still felt like he wasn't supposed to be there, and now he wanted to steal back the life he thought the state had stolen from him. Something told me it was time, he told the Chronicle. So I walked up and said, "Whatever you're talking about, count me in." Then he turned and walked away. The next morning, Rivas woke up wanting to know if he was serious. He was. So they hatched a plan inspired by a book Rivas had read. It was slow going, but one thing they knew from the start, they didn't want to go over or under the fence. That would mean getting shot at. Instead, they wanted to drive out through the gate like free men. First, they had to pick a crew. Harper and a man named Randy Halpern were already on board. Then, according to Garcia, they learned Donald Newberry was planning an escape of his own, so they invited him along. And they found Michael Rodriguez, whose father was willing to supply a getaway car. Finally, there was Patrick Murphy, a woodshop worker who could help build a false bed for the prison truck they planned to steal. For each and every one of us, we all brought something to the table, Garcia told the Chronicle in a letter. Some more than others. It would have to start, they decided, with figuring out a way to take control of the maintenance shop. Rivas already worked there as a clerk. He was a smooth talker, so he convinced the guards into getting his friends assigned there too. It wasn't a hard sell. Supplies went missing all the time, and his friends, he promised, would make sure that didn't happen. They did, but putting a stop to the booming thieving business was not a popular move among inmates. "I was surprised we didn't get jumped," Garcia said. At the same time, they started false rumors among the staff, got intel on officer training, stocked up on supplies, and memorized security routines. The night before, Garcia said, they shared a meal and prayed. On December 13th, they stayed behind at lunch to wax the floor. Then they overpowered staff, officers, and inmates as they returned to maintenance, according to testimony at the men's trial. Using several well-planned ploys, the 7 convicts overpowered and restrained 9 civilian maintenance supervisors, including their boss, 4 correctional officers, and 3 uninvolved inmates at approximately 11:20. The escape occurred during lunch and at count time, the slowest period of the prison day when there was less surveillance of certain locations, such as the maintenance area. Most of these plans involved one of the offenders calling someone over while another hit the unsuspecting person on the head from behind. Once each victim was knocked unconscious, the offenders removed some of his clothing, tied him up, gagged him, and placed him in an electrical room behind a locked door full of electronics, including warning alarms. The attackers stole clothing, credit cards, and identification from their victims. The men also left them a note saying, "You haven't heard the last of us yet." The group impersonated prison officers on the phone and created false stories to ward off suspicion from authorities. After this first phase, 3 of the group made their way to the back gate of the prison, some disguised in stolen civilian clothing. They pretended to be there to install video monitors. One guard at the gatehouse was subdued, and the trio raided the guard tower and stole numerous weapons. Meanwhile, the 4 offenders who stayed behind called the prison tower guards to distract them. They stole 14 handguns, a shotgun, an AR-15 rifle, and more than 100 rounds of ammunition before fleeing north in a prison maintenance pickup truck, which they drove to the back gate of the prison, picked up their cohorts, and drove away from the prison. Rodriguez's father, Raul, had provided the men a getaway car. For this act, he was later convicted of escape and providing implements for escape. The white prison truck was found in a Walmart parking lot in Kennedy, Texas. The Texas 7 first entered San Antonio right after breaking out of the complex. Realizing that they were running out of funds, they robbed a Radio Shack in Pearland, Texas, in the greater Houston area the following day. On December 19th, 4 of the members checked into an Econo Lodge motel in Farmers Branch, Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area under assumed names. The plan at first was to rob the sporting goods store Oshman's, according to Murphy. On December 24, 2000, they entered the store, bound and gagged all the staff, and stole at least 40 guns and sets of ammunition, including $70,000 from the store's safe. An ex-employee in the car outside the store noticed the commotion inside and called the police. Murphy was sitting outside in a vehicle as a lookout and monitoring radios. "I warned them there was a police officer in the area, and I actually told them to get out, to leave, but they didn't," Murphy said. He said he was instructed to drive away, which he said he did. Irving police officer Aubrey Wright Hawkins responded to the call and, upon arriving at the scene, was almost immediately ambushed, being shot 11 times and run over by the escaped convicts as they fled the scene. According to court records, Hawkins was killed within minutes of arriving to the scene. Hawkins died at Parkland Memorial Hospital in Dallas shortly after his arrival. Hawkins had been a police officer with the Irving Police Department since October 4, 1995, and was married and had a son. After Officer Hawkins' murder, a $100,000 reward was offered to whoever could snare the group of criminals. The reward climbed to $500,000 before the 6 surviving members of the group were apprehended. The murder of Officer Hawkins sent shockwaves through Texas and across the nation. The men weren't seen or heard from for weeks until a tip in late January came in that they were seen in Colorado. They were staying in a trailer park near Woodland Park, Colorado, which is near Colorado Springs. A massive manhunt followed, with authorities offering increasing rewards for information leading to the group's capture. Following an episode of the television show America's Most Wanted that first aired on January 20, 2001, several people phoned in possible sightings of the suspects at the Coachlight Motel and RV Park in Woodland Park, Colorado. They had apparently tried to pass themselves off as missionaries, playing loud Christian music within earshot of their neighbors. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office, Colorado, and Teller County deputies' SWAT team found Garcia, Rodriguez, and Rivas in a Jeep Cherokee in the RV park, before following them to a nearby gas station where they were arrested, and later found Halperin and Harper in an RV. Halperin surrendered peacefully, but Harper was found dead after a standoff, having shot himself in the chest with a pistol. The surviving four were taken into federal custody. FBI agents say that while 4 escapees from a Texas prison are now in custody in Woodland Park, 2 others believed to be armed and dangerous remain at large. It is very important for the public to listen, FBI agent in charge Mark Marchand said. We have 2 subjects that are still on the loose. They are armed and extremely dangerous. They are in fact heavily armed. We know this based upon an interview with the subjects in custody. Marchand said Donald Keith Newberry and Patrick Henry Murphy Jr. were reported to be driving a late 1970s or early 1980s brown or maroon conversion van with white curtains in the side and black windows. It was last seen with temporary tags. On January 23, 2001, the FBI received information that the remaining 2 escapees, Newberry and Murphy, were hiding in a Holiday Inn in Colorado Springs, Colorado. A deal was brokered with the 2, allowing them to make live TV appearances before they were arrested. Media was tipped off when a guest asked KKTV chief photographer Mike Petcash and reporter Jeanette Hines why they could not get to the hotel. The pair drove to the hotel, finding it flooded with law enforcement. In the early hours of January 24th, a local KKTV television anchorman, Eric Singer, was taken into the hotel where he interviewed the 2 by telephone while on camera. Newberry and Murphy harshly criticized the criminal justice system in Texas, with Newberry adding, "The system is as corrupt as we are." In a 2003 interview with the Associated Press, Newberry said he would still escape if he could do it all over again. "I had 99 years, he said, referring to his original sentence. What did I have to lose? One of the last remaining members of the Texas 7 talks prison escape. George Rivas was planning this for a long time. I probably became active in the planning in the last 6 months, Murphy said. Murphy met the other men as 6 of them worked in the maintenance department. He was initially convicted of aggravated sexual assault and had only about 5 years left on his sentence at the time of escape. In 2008, authorities indicted Patsy Gomez and Paul Rodriguez, the parents of Michael Rodriguez, for conspiring to help the Texas 7. George Rivas, the ringleader, was the first to be brought to trial. Garcia's attorney long claimed that their client was not one of the 5 who fired at 29-year-old Hawkins, and that he was not in the vicinity during the shootout. Lori Hawkins testified in the trial of George Rivas, the ringleader of a group of 6 inmates who escaped from a South Texas prison. It wasn't supposed to happen, Garcia said in a Houston Chronicle interview. I wish I could take everything back. In repeatedly rejected appeals filed to both state and federal courts since his sentencing, Garcia's lawyers argued that the Dallas County prosecutor, Toby Shook, portrayed Garcia as a callous and cold-hearted killer based on false testimony from his original Bexar County District Court trial when Garcia was sentenced in November 1996 for the fatal stabbing of Miguel Luna in San Antonio. But Shook said his job was to prove that Garcia posed a future danger to the public, and the 1996 sentencing lent easy evidence to the 2003 murder trial. I don't think that anything could be more relevant than an offense of murder. Shook said in an interview with the Texas Tribune, I think we accurately depicted Joseph Garcia as a very violent individual. Stephen Cooper, one of Garcia's attorneys, wrote in a November 14th plea to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals that Garcia's original counsel in the Bexar County murder trial, local attorney Robert Novell Graham, didn't mention that Garcia's disturbing upbringing was marked by sexual abuse, poverty, his mother's heroin addiction, a sister's death, his father's abandonment, and stints in group homes. The court denied the appeal on Friday. Judge Elsa Alcala fortified the ongoing argument over the constitutionality of the law of parties and Garcia's death sentence from the Texas 7 shootout. Even though Garcia was a major participant in the offense and he had reckless indifference to human life, he did not have the intent to kill Hawkins or act in a premeditated or deliberate manner in causing Hawkins' death. Given the evidence that he was armed with a firearm and declined to shoot at Hawkins, Alcala wrote in the opinion. Garcia maintains otherwise. I am on death row because of the actions and intent of others, and because I am one of the Texas 7. Case closed, he wrote in a letter. Is it right that I should be murdered for something I did not do? Garcia's attorneys also filed several appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court to review the lower court's decision and grant a stay of execution. Garcia's lawyers also filed a stay of execution with the Supreme Court against the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles, arguing that the board has too many members with a law enforcement background and is disproportionately male, therefore violating the clemency process because the board does not fulfill a requirement to be representative of the general public. Garcia's attorneys also raised legal concerns over prisoners in recent executions reportedly experiencing a burning sensation after they administered the lethal injection following a BuzzFeed news report that identified the state's legal drug supplier as the Houston-based Green Park Compounding Pharmacy. Green Park has allegedly supplied compounded pentobarbital to the state for the last 3.5 years, and the pharmacy's license was on probation as recently as November due to dangerous practices that include administering the wrong medication to a child who had to be hospitalized. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton argued it was speculative to say that the execution would subject Garcia to cruel and unusual punishment. The state said that an argument boils down to speculation, that the pentobarbital to be used was compounded incorrectly and will possibly lead to unconstitutional pain, and that Garcia does not prove that this temporary discomfort is unconstitutionally intolerable. The courts need to take a serious look at the constitutional issue concerning Texas's legal injection drugs and unfair clemency process, Garcia's additional lawyer, Merdula Rahman, said in an emailed statement. The Supreme Court denied Garcia's multiple pleas for a stay of execution, handing down its decision shortly before the execution. Garcia delivered the final words before he was pronounced dead at 6:30 p.m. Yes, sir. Dear Heavenly Father, please forgive them, for they know not what they do. Subsequently, the other 5 surviving members of the Texas 7 were brought to trial, convicted, and sentenced to death. Rodriguez announced that he wished to forego further appeal beyond the mandatory death penalty appeal to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. A court-ordered psychiatric evaluation in January 2007 concluded that he was mentally competent to decide to forego further appeals. 20 months later, he became the first of the 6 surviving members to be executed on August 14, 2008 at 1830. George Rivas was executed almost 4 years later on February 29, 2012 at 1822. Donald Newberry was executed by lethal injection on February 4, 2015 at 1825. Joseph Garcia was executed by lethal injection on December 4, 2018 at 1843. The remaining 2 members are incarcerated on death row at the Polunsky Unit of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, located in West Livingston. Neither currently has an execution date. I regret it every day, Murphy said. He said he isn't the same person he was before. Years ago, he converted to Buddhism and spoke in length about how it has helped him be more at peace and calls his past a bad period of time. Murphy was scheduled for execution twice, first on March 28, 2019. Murphy fully expected that to be his last day alive, as he was scheduled to be executed. At the time, I was probably as prepared as I could have been, Murphy said, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually prepared to take that step into the next life. Murphy at the time had requested a Buddhist spiritual leader to be present inside the execution room. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice denied the request. His attorney filed an appeal arguing Murphy's religious rights were violated. The United States Supreme Court granted a last-minute reprieve on the basis that TDCJ's denial of his request to have a Buddhist priest in the execution room with him violated the Establishment Clause and Free Exercise Clause of the United States Constitution. Already in Huntsville, Murphy had his last meal, made his last phone calls, and awaited to be walked over and strapped to the gurney. The execution was scheduled to begin at 6 p.m., but the hours started going by, and nobody came to get him. I spent 4 hours looking into the valley of the shadow of death, and I stepped back from it, Murphy said. Eventually, the assistant warden came in to tell him a stay of execution had been granted. I was really very shocked, Murphy said. I don't know what to say. I didn't know how to act. It was like I was relieved, but at the same time, I was kind of disappointed. 8 months later, Murphy was given a second execution date, November 13th, 2019. But again, it was halted. A U.S. district judge ruled that Murphy had demonstrated valid concerns about TDCJ's execution policy. Almost 5 years later, Murphy hasn't been given a new date, but believes it could still happen. I'm pretty much of the opinion that if I get a third date, it probably would be the one, Murphy said. He doesn't deny his crimes, but doesn't believe he should have been given the death penalty as he didn't take part in Hawkins' murder. In Texas, the law of parties makes him an automatic accomplice, and because of that, he got the same conviction as the others. Regardless, as a Buddhist, he says he seeks peace and acceptance. We did this. Let's move on, Murphy said. As a Buddhist, we try to do something better, and that's what I'm trying to do. However, his execution was stayed by the United States District Court for the Southern District of Texas on November 7th to decide whether his religious discrimination lawsuit had merit. Halpern was scheduled to be executed on October 10th, 2019. However, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals halted the execution of Randy Halpern on Friday, less than a week before he was to be put to death on October 4th, 2019, due to concerns of racial and religious discrimination from his trial judge. Trial Judge Vic Cunningham allegedly referred to Halpern, who is Jewish, as a goddamn kike and a fucking Jew shortly after the trial. Cunningham also admitted to putting stipulations in his will that his children could only receive inheritance by marrying a straight. The Court of Criminal Appeals, Texas' highest criminal court, stopped Halpern's execution set for next Thursday and sent the case back to the Dallas County Trial Court for further review of the claims. A fair trial requires an impartial judge, and Mr. Halpern did not have a fair and neutral judge when his life was at stake, one of Halpern's attorneys, Tivon Shartle, said in a statement after the ruling. We are grateful the CCA has given Mr. Halpern the opportunity to seek a new trial, free of religious discrimination. Tivon Shartle, Halpern's attorney, wrote in a statement that today's filing sends a clear message that the Constitution guarantees a free trial before a fair court, and a judgment handed down by a biased judge cannot be left standing. Witnesses who bravely performed their civic duty in a difficult case left no doubt that Judge Cunningham harbored anti-Semitic bias towards Randy Halpern during his capital murder trial, Shartle wrote. These facts have troubled many members of the community, including legal professionals, faith leaders, defenders of religious liberty, and others who hold our constitutional rights dear. Shartle added that findings on Halpern's behalf would be proposed soon and joined the district attorney in urging for a new trial before an unbiased judge. Cunningham did not immediately return requests for comment Friday afternoon. Dallas District Attorney John Krazoit, who did not file a response to Halpern's appeal, said Friday evening it was too early to determine what the office's next step would be in the case. Halpern's lawyers said in their filings they have recently learned about Cunningham's anti-Semitic slurs, as well as calling some of his co-defendants wetbacks. They also claimed Cunningham said people of color would go down in his courtroom and that Jews needed to be shut down. The filings attributed the allegations to first-hand accounts. Cunningham has denied the bigoted comments in previous interviews with the Morning News. 4 of the other Texas 7 have already been executed, including at least one tried under Cunningham. On Thursday, a Henderson County court withdrew the execution date of Randall Mays, set for October 16th, to review his mental competency. The bodies of Harper, Rodriguez, Newberry, and Garcia are buried at Captain Joe Bird Cemetery. In 2001, the American Court TV, now True TV, television series Mugshots released an episode covering Rivas titled Mugshots, George Rivas. In 2007, Wild Dream Films produced The Hunt for the Texas 7, a 90-minute feature documentary about the prison break. The film features interviews with members of the Texas 7 currently on death row and eyewitnesses to their crimes. On March 25, 2011, Investigation Discovery aired an episode about the case on the show FBI Criminal Pursuit, subtitled The Deadly 7. 1 year later, on March 23, 2012, Investigation Discovery aired an episode of Werner Herzog's documentary series On Death Row, which dealt with Rivas and Garcia. On July 30, 2014, Investigation Discovery's I Almost Got Away With It aired an episode titled Got to Be Part of the Texas 7. In spring 2019, ITV UK produced the series Death Row: Countdown to Execution, hosted by Susanna Reid. Episode 1 chronicles the case of one of the members of the Texas 7, Patrick Murphy. The Texas 7 saga is a reminder of the lengths to which desperate individuals will go for freedom. Their escape and subsequent crimes shocked the nation and left a lasting imprint on the criminal justice system. While most of the group faced justice through capture or death, their stories continue to evoke discussions about prison security, the motivations behind such violent acts, and the line between law and morality. Ultimately, the Texas 7 were brought down by their own violent impulses, sealing their fate in one of the most infamous crime stories in modern U.S. history. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to Breakout Bank for more videos.